Hello. First, I want to thank all of you for gathering as a deanery to be part of this continuing consultation of the marriage canon. This consultation is part of a process that's been required by General Synod coming out of the 2013 reading. At that time, a change to the marriage canon was passed, which requires it to come back again in 2019 for confirmation. Between 2016 and 2019, every diocese and provincial synod is required to engage in consultation and provide their feedback to General Synod in 2019. Your comments, your thoughts, your concerns, your questions are important to this process. And so I look forward to hearing from you as you continue this consultation that began at our synod in 2017 and will conclude at our synod in 2018. I'm deeply grateful to the team of Marilyn Moulton, Stephen McClatchy, and Greg Jenkins, who are guiding this process for us. I trust that you will enter this process with honesty, with patience, and with an open heart and mind to share where you need clarification and where you have questions. Thank you for giving your time to this process and helping us to be a better church through it.
Welcome to this conversation about the proposed changes to the marriage canon. In 2016, Anglicans from across Canada gathered at General Synod, the governing body of the Anglican Church of Canada. Among the many motions that they considered was one that proposed changes to the marriage canon. The proposed changes would allow 2 men or 2 women to marry each other in an Anglican church wedding. Of course, there was not agreement at General Synod about whether to proceed with the proposed changes. But after much discussion, the majority of people, bishops, clergy, and lay people, voted yes to make the proposed changes. For a change of this kind to take place in the Anglican Church, 2 votes are required at General Synod. Now you may be wondering what will happen in 2019 if the proposed changes are approved. Then, will 2 women be able to marry each other or 2 men be able to marry each other in an Anglican church wedding? Well, once again, it's not that simple. First, the changes wouldn't come into effect until January 2020. Second, each bishop in each diocese will decide whether or not to allow same-sex marriages in their diocese. Third, any Anglican minister can say no when asked to marry a couple. He or she must follow his or her conscience. That's how it is in the marriage canon now, and that hasn't changed.
The conversation about lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Christians is not a new conversation. The Anglican Church of Canada has been having these conversations since the mid-1970s. It was over 40 years ago that the House of Bishops put together a working group that led to the 1979 Statement on Sexuality. These are not simple conversations. Gender and sexuality connect with larger theological questions and beliefs. For example, they connect with how we interpret Scripture, how we understand the sacraments, and our place within the wider Anglican communion. These are the same issues that the Church grappled with when deciding whether to ordain women. In the meantime, in 2003, same-sex marriages became legal across Ontario, and in 2005 across Canada. The conversations in the Church continued. In 2004, General Synod affirmed the sanctity of same-sex relationships. In 2013, the Bishop of Huron approved the blessing of same-sex couples married in a civil ceremony. So yes, the Anglican Church of Canada has been talking about same-sex relationships for a long time. If you'd like to understand more about the history of these conversations, please see the resources on our webpage. These resources will outline the decisions that we've made over the years and how the Church, but not necessarily all the people in the Church, have changed how we understand and respond to same-sex relationships. But now the focus of the conversation is, should we allow the marriage of same-sex couples in the Church?
At our diocesan synod in May 2017, we had conversation circles about the proposed changes to the marriage canon. Some members of Synod opposed the changes, and some were in favor of them. Others weren't sure, and they wanted to understand more. Everyone had many questions. Questions like, how does the Bible and the Church understand Christian marriage? Or, won't the proposed changes redefine marriage? Or, why is this taking so long? In this short video, we can only look at a couple of issues. However, we have collected and created many resources for you and posted them on the diocesan webpage. The most important one is called This Holy Estate. This Holy Estate is the report the Marriage Commission prepared for General Synod in 2016. If you can't access the webpage, ask your rector to help you get copies of the documents. Right now, let's take a look at a couple of the questions raised at Synod. How does the Bible and the Church understand Christian marriage? The Bible and Church teachings point to two main ways of understanding Christian marriage. One way looks to the stories of creation. This way of looking at marriage celebrates marriage as a gift from God that includes love and companionship between a man and a woman. It doesn't allow for same-sex marriage. A second way of looking at Christian marriage is as a union of faithful love. It is both a commitment and a covenant that reflects God's faithfulness and sacrificial love. This Holy Estate reasons that it is possible, theologically, for two men or two women to make this kind of commitment or covenant. It also says that the Church needs to decide if the change is where the Spirit is leading the Church at this time. Another question, what about Bible passages that speak against sexual activity with someone of the same sex, or call it a sin? We urge you to make use of the resources posted on the diocesan website for further study. Interpreting these passages is neither clear nor straightforward. We do know that we need to interpret individual passages as a part of the whole Bible. We also need to try to understand the historical context. Here's another thing we know. When we try to understand Christian marriage and what the Bible has to say about it, we can arrive at different conclusions. Some of us will end up opposing same-sex marriage. Some of us will be in favor of it. And some of us will change our minds over time. We asked members of Synod what they found encouraging or challenging about the proposed changes to the marriage canon. Here are some representatives.
I take scriptures literally in cases like this. Therefore, the likelihood of not being listened to is very discouraging. The challenge to my faith is in realizing that scripture is being ignored in this case.
I am encouraged to see the Church carefully consider its response to an important societal question of our age and attempt to bridge between traditions, scripture, and a need to stay engaged in our own times.
The proposed changes are a direct challenge to my understanding of Scripture. Passing this motion works against church unity. Ephesians 4:1-16 is followed by 4:17 and forward.
God made all of us in His own image and likeness. We are all uniquely made. It is not for me, us, to judge. If a man wants to spend his life with another man, a woman with a woman, then so be it.
I have sadness, also anger at times, about the harm we have done, and we are so slow to stop doing, but excitement that we are moving in a good direction.
I am frustrated by how long we have been at this.
I am encouraged. I feel it is right and directed by Christian theology. However, I am concerned about the schisms it will cause in the wider Anglican community.
No matter how the decision goes, there will be much pain.
We expect that there will be different viewpoints in your Deanery Conversations. We expect that there will be disagreements. So the important question is, how can we have good disagreements? How can we listen well to views that may differ from our own? One way is to make commitments to each other. We are asking you to commit to listening well and to disagreeing well. To help you to do that, we have developed some group norms. We tested them out at Synod and they worked well. So we used them in our Deanery gatherings as well. Your facilitator will go over the group norms with you. As we begin these conversations, it's important to remember that we're not trying to change each other's minds. We are not making decisions. We are simply trying to sit and listen to each other express different points of view. You may be wondering what will happen after these conversations. The person recording highlights from your group will pass these highlights on to the task force. You are also encouraged to submit individual written responses. The viewpoints that you share at your deanery gathering will form the basis of a report to Synod in 2018. But it is important to remember that we will not be voting on these proposed changes at Synod in May. What we will do at Synod is to elect delegates to General Synod for 2019. These delegates will vote on these proposed changes and many other motions, including the change to the marriage canon.
In this gathering, we are asking you to share your thoughts, your concerns, your questions about the proposed changes to the marriage canon. We have a few questions for you, and don't worry, they're written down on a handout. First, what questions do you still have about the proposed changes to the marriage canon? Second, how will the outcome of the vote at General Synod affect you? What resources will you need from the diocese if the motion passes or if it does not pass? Then, based on what you hear from each other, you'll have a chance to respond to a third question. What do you most want General Synod to hear from the Diocese of Huron about the marriage canon? We want you to know that we are praying for each gathering, and we thank you for your participation.